everyone, and welcome to Growing Together, a gardening podcast with me, John Lamb, and Don Kinsler, a lifelong gardener, the North Dakota State University Extension horticulturist for Cass County. Don, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm excited. I have an iris blooming.
Really?
Yes. Of course, June is the month for iris.
Right.
But there are a few varieties of iris that actually will bloom again in September and fairly reliably.
Okay.
This particular one, and it's one that's quite reliable, it's called Immortality.
Okay.
It's white. And beautiful. And I went out yesterday to, I was going to cut it and bring it in and enjoy it. So anyway, beautiful September blooming iris. And it was in the morning. It was daylight had come, but all over that blossom were slugs.
Oh.
Big, fat slugs.
Oh.
And it
didn't come inside.
It did not come inside. And I was surprised. It was a humid, dewy morning, so I suppose the slugs were still out.
Yeah.
But that's one of the few times that I've actually seen slugs in operation. Usually you have to go out in the middle of the night with a flashlight and catch them crawling around your plants. But I saw it in broad daylight. I actually took photos of it. It was it kind of spoiled my appetite, but the iris was still pretty. How is everything doing in your yard, John?
Well, speaking of slugs, we had our hostas have been I didn't get around to spraying the hostas with the ammonia mixture like you suggested, and so our slugs kind of did a number on some of the hostas. And the other night, 2 nights ago actually, our Don's just showing me a picture now of, and
I caught the slug in photo.
It's just really just
action.
nestled right into the flower too.
And
it is
scraping away on the leaves.
Oh, yeah.
There's a photo of big fat slug on
just
the leaves.
Gross and
they
grimy.
are awful.
Well, I took the dogs outside for their last time, about 9:30 on Tuesday night. And I've got one dog, the smaller dog. He is he's kind of a basset hound spaniel mix. So he's low to the ground, his big floppy ears. He loves running around, and he's a big sniffer because he's a hound. So he goes along the fence line and he's always sniffing. That's where we've had rabbits go in and out. So he goes along there and he runs through the hostas, everything like that. We come inside and Sam says, "Ralph, what do you have on your ear?" And I thought it was just because it was kind of wet out. I thought he'd been sneezing. Maybe he had some snot or something like that. It was a slug on his ear brought into the house. So we had pull that off. It made it to the floor, and then we just picked it up and threw it away.
I wonder if because we had relatively rainy period, now it's dry, raining today. We need a little bit of rain. But I think we've been fairly high in moisture in many areas. And humid.
Yeah.
And so the slugs have obviously proliferated.
Yeah, and they seem to come along a little bit later this year. I don't recall seeing them as early. I know some years we seem to have seen them on the hostas a little bit earlier, but yeah. So there's that. I'm still waiting for a number of my tomatoes. I do have to say I'm still waiting for a number of my tomatoes to turn color. They seem to be fully formed and they look pretty good, but just waiting for them to ripen up on the vine.
And the weather has continued to be pretty good.
Yep.
And so as we're discussing this, there's no frost yet in the forecast. I'm sure it's going to be coming, but it's been a good extended time for getting tomatoes to ripen.
So we've been bringing our tomatoes, once they just start turning just a little bit of blush, a little bit of color, we'll bring them inside so the squirrels don't get to them. So I got to say, our kitchen now, what is the smell of the tomato? What is that? There
must be I'm sure the chemists
there's a chemical. Yeah.
The chemist must have
that.
what that aroma is. You bring up an interesting point. Half the fun of a tomato, slicing a tomato, they do have that. There's a tomato aroma.
And if you have tomato plants like we did, in that our tomato plants were growing very, very big, and we maybe didn't do a great job of staking them, so they were kind of maybe flopping all over. When you were walking through them, they were at nose level, and there is a very distinct tomato smell.
There is,
and I can't.
I'm not sure that would make a good cologne, but
it's a very strong thing.
I like tomato aroma.
So here we are. It's mid-September. We've still got things coming up in the garden. How are your squashes coming in?
Doing quite well.
Yep.
And of course, we don't harvest the winter type squash until the frost collapses the vines.
Yep.
Then we get them. I did dig the onions. They were pretty well dried down. So yeah, things are coming along.
We had some of our potatoes those were good.
Oh.
We dug up some potatoes. The vines had died back a little bit there, so we still got another bucket ready. But that's been kind of fun to see. And
yeah, so I'm calling it a decent growing season.
Yeah,
it had ups and downs like everything, but generally I think pretty good. Tomatoes for many people were slow coming. In fact, that's the garden column that I'm writing is on tomatoes. How'd your tomatoes do? That makes a good talking point. People enjoy comparing. How's your tomatoes been?
Yeah.
And so I wrote a garden column about that.
Well, and the thing now that people are looking forward to is not necessarily what we're growing in our garden, but what's above us, especially the color in the trees. And I'm starting to see it a little bit. Maybe some of the maples are just starting to turn a little bit.
That's going to be fun to talk about today, examining, because, as we get into this, we have not, for most of us, have not had frost yet, but yet colors are changing. Yeah. And so it's going to be fun to talk about what actually triggers these pretty fall colors.
Yeah. Well, first of all, you have a question from a listener.
I do. All right. Amy writes in, "Hello, Don and John. Greetings from Grand Forks. I have a golden currant bush to the front of my house. I have a golden currant bushes in the front of my house. They run along a walkway. The bushes have grown quite a bit over the summer, and with some winds and heavy rains, they've laid over and are covering my walkway. Am I okay to cut them back in preparation for future snow blowing, or am I better off tying them up with stakes to clear the walkway and plan to trim them in the spring? I greatly enjoy your podcast. Thanks for any advice." Well, thank you, Amy. Thanks for writing in. And generally, pruning, whether it's trees, shrubs, for most things should wait until late winter, early spring before they leaf out. That's the general rule. But there's one exception that I always make, and that is if your shrubs are leaning over the sidewalk and if the branches are going to get tangled up in a snowblower, I think a person is wise to go ahead and prune. Now, in most cases, if you prune something in the fall, most cases it's going to be just fine. But there's always a chance of something going wrong. I guess I've never heard of anything actually dying from fall pruning. Some types of plants can get a little branch dieback. Now, golden currant is so good and hardy that rather than trying to tie them up, you could, but I think I would go ahead and trim them. Again, the rule kind of is just wait until next spring. But with something that is as hardy as the currants are, I think I would go ahead and do some trimming on those.
Well, and something like that too, that there's always, if it's a plant or if it's a shrub, that could be, if there's the possibility that there could get a lot of snow and it could damage the plant by the weight of that, then maybe it's better to, surgically do some very specific trimming.
Exactly, because what I'm picturing in my head is, Amy, if you try to tie them up, stake them up kind of in an unnatural position, the weight of the snow, like you mentioned, John, I'm concerned that it might snap some of those branches and might break them at points you don't want them to break. And so I think I would go ahead and trim them so that they aren't in the way of your snowblower. And boy, that can make a mess if you catch something in your snowblower that isn't meant to be caught in a snowblower.
Well, and then also, it's just that's the thing that I've had. I had it snap I can't remember what the rod is in there, the snow thrower,
sure.
There's a shaft. I can't remember what it is, the shaft.
And shear pins.
Normally wrapped around there. And that's not something, it can be an easy fix, but in the middle of winter, if you don't have a heated garage, you don't want to be sticking your
even replacing
hands
the shear pins when it's 30 below. If you don't have a heated garage.
It's easier sometimes just to do some cutting.
Yeah. So thanks, Amy. Thanks much for writing in. And if anyone does have any questions, write in or comments, something that you're proud of also, send me an email, donald.kinsler, KINZLER, @ndsu.edu.
Well, I just as a little bit of an update, I Googled while you were reading the letter there to find what is the scent of a tomato. And this is something I found, a tomato Solanum Piercium. Aroma is determined by the intersection of volatile compounds released by the tomato fruits and receptors in the nose, leading to a sensorial impression such as sweet, smoky, or fruity aromas. Borders may contribute, but anyway, so that there is a distinct smell. We'll try to figure out what the actual components are. Because tomato, what is lyso?
Lipocurse,
something like that. Yeah,
yes, it starts with an L.
L, and I think that's yes, where we're going.
The botanical name of tomato, Lipopersicum.
Well, we'll go from the color of tomatoes to the color of foliage. And what are some of your favorite colors in the fall? What are some of the things that you look forward to seeing?
Well, I enjoy, of course, the reds, the deep scarlets. And of course, that's why so many people plant maples. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Sometimes they do well, sometimes they don't, especially in the Red River Valley and points west. But, good, deep, rich reds. But what really intrigues me, though, is when you get lots of different colors, the yellows, the golds, the reds, they kind of play off each other. And it kind of makes this a pretty, a fall painting. In fact, it's interesting. When most of us picture fall, when somebody mentions autumn, what comes to mind? Maybe pumpkin. Mm-hmm. But for many of us, it's the fall color, the fall foliage.
Yep.
And that's why it's so attractive for people driving through New England or Minnesota, some of the states that have lots of natural forests, northern North Dakota, along some of the river draws. The Pembina Gorge is beautiful in the fall of the year. And so the fall color is just so attractive. And so excuse me. And so I thought it'd be fun to talk about that. What actually triggers this color? What are some things we can plant in our landscape that will give us that fall color? And so in our own yard, I've enjoyed planting some things that are especially colorful, but I like the combinations of colors. If everything was bright scarlet, maybe wouldn't look as nice. The combination.
But you had a bright scarlet next to like maybe a really bright gold, something like that. You can have all those things together, and they just kind of pop and play off of each other. It's really great. I really like sumacs is the thing that I notice around the lakes area. You see a lot of in the kind of popping up in the ditches, and sumacs can really be quite dynamic.
Definitely. And speaking of fall color, there are some shrubs, not to say anything wrong about them, but there are some shrubs and trees that just go into fall and winter green.
Yeah.
They don't develop fall color. I guess their fall color is dull green.
Right.
And so it's kind of fun. Nothing against those, but some of that type of thing just kind of slip into winter without a whole lot of show. And so it is fun to talk about the actual fall color of it. So should we get right into it?
Yeah. I mean, so where does the fall color come from? Why do leaves change color?
But, it's fascinating. And I find it fascinating the way that trees and their leaves and everything form. Okay, so during the growing season, of course, most leaves are green. The green is chlorophyll. And in our junior high and high school botany classes, we learn that the chlorophyll, the green pigment, is necessary for photosynthesis. Sunlight, water, and all those good things in the presence of chlorophyll creates food for the plant, etc. And of course, in turn, food for us too from that photosynthesis process. So most plants have that green chlorophyll in their green leaves. So an interesting thing happens towards fall. And sometimes we mistakenly think that we need cool temperatures. Cool temperatures then start triggering, but that's not entirely true. The biggest trigger of color change is day length. When the days start getting shorter, it's a trigger to trees and shrubs that winter's going to be coming. And so in preparation for that, the trees and shrubs start dismantling their photosynthesis. So the chlorophyll is no longer needed, so that starts to break down. And the green color then, as it breaks down, it unmasks kind of other pigments and colors. So the green chlorophyll starts to disappear, and most plants have a yellow undertone. So the green starts to break down and it reveals yellow. So trees and shrubs that develop a yellow fall color, simply the green starts to disappear and it unmasks the yellow. So that's why yellow and kind of golden colors are the most common on many types of things. But some trees and shrubs are kind of a little bit lucky in that they, when the days start getting shorter, in addition to unmasking the yellows, they have kind of chemicals and substances in the leaf that, anthocyanins is one of them, kind of reddish, purplish pigments. And so in addition to the green chlorophyll just kind of disappearing, they start to convert some things, starches and things, into sugars and other pigments. And so you start getting reds and purples, things like that. And also, as the temperatures get cooler, that favors that. So now, for example, an ash tree, most ash-type trees, and most elms, the American elm, those develop a yellow or golden fall color because the green chlorophyll disappears. The yellow is unmasked. That's their color. They do not have those pigments to make the red and the scarlety type things. But let's go to the maples. So maples have those the ability to form these other compounds. So that's why we get the reds and scarlets in some things like maples and some other varieties too. So there's two things going on. The shortening days unmask yellows and golds, but then the shortening days accompanied by some cooler temperatures, that triggers these reds and purple pigments to start forming. And so we don't actually need frost, just the cool temperatures. Sometimes a person will hear, I can't wait till we get some frost because then the colors will start changing. Well, actually, it's just cool temperatures. When we actually get a killing frost, that can signal to the tree and shrub that, winter is really going to come, and the leaves start falling. So that can actually end the show. When we actually get too many frosts. The other thing that's fascinating too that's happening, there is where the point at which a leaf and its little stem is attached to the twig, because of the shortening days, there's a layer that forms there, a layer of cells called the abscission layer. And when the days start getting short, those cells form, and at a certain point, when that abscission layer is complete, then that layer allows the leaf to start falling. And that's why, when you think about it, trees are actually amazing creatures. If that abscission layer didn't form, those leaves would cling on all winter. They catch a lot of snow, maybe break branches, but also how is next year's leaves supposed to pop out if the old ones are still hanging tightly on? So it's fascinating how the tree forms that layer, kind of a breakaway layer that allows those leaves to drop. And, that gives us something to rake up also in the fall or to mulch into your lawn. But that's for another podcast. So it's fascinating the way that all happens. But when too many frosts occur, then you start getting all the leaves dropping. Then that's kind of the end of the show. But isn't it fascinating, John, how trees develop these colors, whether it's the yellows and golds or the types that have the ability to do the reds and scarlets?
It's a very complex organism. It's a very complex thing.
And it's kind of a fun, it's fun. I think it gives a person a greater appreciation of fall color when you kind of know the rest of the story.
Well, and it's interesting too that, if we were to have a really abnormally, as we're used to, if we were to have an abnormally cold August that felt like fall, trees still wouldn't change color because there would still be as much sunlight.
Boy, you got that right.
So that's a good way to...
until the days start getting to a certain short length, Also, it's interesting too. Some years are better fall color years than others. The type of weather that creates the best fall show is clear days, clear sunny days, and cool, not necessarily freezing, but cool nights. And that's what really gives the show. The extended, the bright blue skies of October.
How do you think we've been so far this year? We haven't had the cool nights.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, exactly. Warm. The nights have been pretty warm.
We had a cooler stretch earlier in September, but
yeah. So that's interesting how that's going to go. The autumns with less fall color are extended, warm, humid, and rainy. You just don't get the pops of colors when it's long periods of kind of rainy. And then you get maybe frost and things just drop and kind of a little bit lackluster.
Yeah.
So it's those kind of a little bit crispy, cool, bright, sunny periods. There's another thing that goes on with this whole fall color thing, and that can be stress on a tree. Okay, so trees, shrubs develop fall color for two reasons. Generally two reasons. Okay, if they're happy, if everything's going well, Mother Nature and the science of trees goes on, they develop fall color. So if they're happy. But if trees and shrubs are unhappy, they can also develop some fall color. It's pretty, but it maybe isn't necessarily the best thing for that. And a good example of this is a maple tree outside of our office. Half the maple tree is a bright scarlet red. It's pretty, but the other half of the tree is green. And one of my coworkers asked me, so what's the reason for that? And I said, well, chances are the half of the tree that is coloring up, especially pretty early, it's got to be under a stress of some sort. The other half, the green half, probably is not under that stress. See, stress can trigger fall color. And so I took a closer look at that tree, and at the base of the part that was changing color so nicely was a big old wound. And so even though that portion is still alive, I can tell that it was under stress. And so sometimes if trees are under drought stress, or if the fall has been kind of dry, sometimes that will actually trigger fall color. So sometimes stress can be a trigger too. But in the case of that maple tree, that stress and the beautiful fall color isn't necessarily a good thing, although I'm enjoying the color on it. So it's interesting how stress can be a little added factor in there on some things. For example, each year I get emails from people, maybe even in early August, saying, my gosh, my maple is turning red already. What's with that? Well, sometimes it's a maple that's been under stress, and so it unnaturally develops its early fall color.
All right, let's take a quick little break. When we come back, more with fall colors in trees and plants.
Get 6 months of local news for just $2. You get unlimited access to the news and information you need to stay connected to your community. Visit inforum.com/subscribe to get 6 months of local news for just $2.
All right, so this week we're talking about fall color, which I think is, it would be hard to find somebody who doesn't appreciate this, who really doesn't like it. Do you have favorite drives to go on? I mean, it's a great time of the year for people to go on drives.
It is. In North Dakota, I love the Pembina Gorge up in the northern part of the Red River Valley. That is absolutely beautiful. The Little Yellowstone State Forest in kind of southeast North Dakota, wonderful spot. And of course, northern Minnesota and kind of the natural forested areas, that's always a beautiful drive.
Yeah, I've heard the Cheyenne Grasslands is really kind of nice too, more for the grasses. But you do have some trees there, and they're a fair amount of trees actually. So yeah, I heard that's a really nice drive. I grew up going down to the lakes area, so I have various little spots around the lakes to go and drive by and see outcroppings of trees, and it's really it's really, really nice. I think it's just always really fun to go down and see. And you really don't have to, I know some people will go up to Duluth but within an hour of Fargo, you can still see some pretty decent color.
Definitely.
I mean, you can go to Maplewood State Park and then you'll find a great amount of color. There'll be a lot of people there, but there'll be a lot of color too. So what would you say? What are some of your favorite trees to look for in color? And what things have you tried planting?
Yeah, one of the nice things is we can create our own fall color right in our own backyard by planting some of the things that do give us excellent color. And of course, when we talk about color, the birches give wonderful yellow, golden color. So birches.
You've planted birches fairly recently, right? Within the last decade or so.
We've planted birch, and so they're well on their way. Dakota Pinnacle is a great birch. One called Prairie Dream. Those are great. River birch, nice, beautiful yellow.
And then you said that one has a particular bark, or the skin. Is that one?
Yes, such as Northern Tribute River birch is one of the varieties. And river birch develops a really neat kind of a creamy brownish bark instead of the white bark.
Yeah.
But yeah, river birch is beautiful in bark as well as the fall color. And honey locust is a beautiful shade and boulevard tree. Honey locust gives kind of a filtered shade. So for a yard where you maybe don't want dense shade, honey locust gives a filtered shade and turns a very nice yellow in the fall.
So if you still want to have a lot of ground planting around there, honey locust is a good one to consider.
Good one, yep, to give some shelter and a little bit of filtered shade. And buckeye. Maples in the Red River Valley and on west can struggle a little. There are some nice ones, but they don't like heavy clay soil. So if you do have heavy clay soil, a good alternative that's very colorful for fall is buckeye. NDSU developed a couple of really good ones that are well adapted for heavy clay soil. One is called Prairie Torch. That gives a beautiful orange-red color. It is absolutely awesome. And another from NDSU is called Lava Burst. I love that, the term Lava Burst. Beautiful orange-red. Another one, Autumn Splendor Buckeye that garden centers have. There's an oak tree that gives really nice fall color, developed at NDSU, called Prairie Stature Oak, nice red fall color. Prairie Expedition Elm, a beautiful golden yellow, great color. Sugar maples. Now, they're the ones that give such beautiful red in the fall. These sugar maples.
Yeah, I mean it seems to be like the iconic.
It is.
Because you have the formation of the maple leaf, and then there's red, but it's not there, like you said. Maples
can be tricky.
Can be tough in our area.
In areas that weren't naturally forested, such as Red River Valley and on west, where it's more prairie-type soils. But NDSU developed one that is more soil-friendly in our areas, called Northern Flare Sugar Maple. So check garden centers for that. Northern Flare Sugar Maple. Northern Red Oak, beautiful. Hackberry, nice shade tree, boulevard tree, light yellow in fall color. Larch develops a wonderful golden yellow. Larch is a fascinating tree. It grows in kind of a pyramidal shape, and during the growing season, the summer growing season, it looks like an evergreen, a spruce tree, because the leaves are needle-like. And then in the fall of the year, they turn a beautiful bright golden yellow, and then they drop.
Okay.
And are you familiar with larch?
I think I've seen them,
It needs to be planted more. It's on my wish list to plant in our yard. So larch, a wonderful tree. It's an evergreen look-alike, and then in the fall of the year, it turns beautiful yellow, and then all the needle-like leaves drop off. And so it is absolutely beautiful. And let's see, a few others on the list here. Firefall maple, a beautiful one. Autumn blaze maple. I always considered autumn blaze maple kind of a roll of the dice, beautiful in color, but if you are in heavy clay soil, it can be a roll of the dice as to whether it will establish in your area. Autumn blaze maple is quite susceptible to iron chlorosis deficiency, the yellowing on that. And, if you aren't looking for a large shade type tree, which are those that we mentioned, smaller scale trees. There are some good ones, kind of smaller decorative or screening type trees. These are trees that are nice, like if you've got a deck or a patio that you'd kind of like to screen for some privacy. Amur maple is beautiful. It's kind of a smaller type maple. And prairie horizon alder, nice yellow. Euonymus. NDSU developed one called Prairie Radiance Euonymus, nice red. Quaking aspen. Aspens are beautiful yellow.
Yeah.
And the rustling of the aspen leaves.
They've got the kind of nice rounded leaves a little bit. They're still kind of ovular, but they're a little bit
beautiful,
rounded.
Good, kind of low-headed screening type tree. Prairie golden aspen, nice one. Canada red cherry. That's the tree, kind of smaller decorative tree. To maybe 20 feet in height, maybe a little more. That's the one with purple leaves in the summer.
Okay.
And then in the fall of the year, they get kind of a red mixture of colors. So Canada red cherry can be beautiful in the fall as well. And Juneberry, beautiful golden and scarlet in the fall of the year. Now, here's one I really love. Hot Wings Tatarian Maple.
Well, that's quite a name.
Yeah, Hot Wings Tatarian Maple. Now, the way it got the Hot Wings name is its seed pods during the growing season. It develops seed pods. They don't become messy or anything, but the seed pods are scarlet red.
Oh.
And they're in kind of a wing shape. Maples
Okay.
have kind of a wing-shaped seed.
Yep.
And so hot wings. And then in the fall of the year, the leaves, of course, do what maples do best and turn a bright scarlety color.
I live over by Concordia, and there's a couple of trees over there. And I asked one of the grounds people one time.
Yeah, what did they say?
Because it turned a really great color, but then it dropped its leaves so fast. Is it a non-flowering plum?
Yes.
Something like that?
Yes.
Are there certain, is there a, because ideally we would have these colors, they would last for a long time. Are there certain trees that tend to drop earlier than others?
They do.
Okay.
Yeah, they do. Each type, generally the yellow and golden ones tend to maybe hang on a little longer than maybe some of the reddish types.
Okay.
And so sometimes, but again, the mixture of all the colors, I think, is what
right.
Really, if you have enough room in your yard. And now there's lots of good landscape shrubs.
Yeah, something lower.
Yeah, I mentioned Amur maple. Amur maple can be grown as either a shrub or a small tree, depending on how you prune it and how the one you buy at the garden center, whether it's a tree shape or a shrub. So Amur maple, good one. The barberries.
Yep.
Barberries. Gosh, they turn a beautiful scarlet. There's lots of different varieties of barberry. I love barberry. I've got at least one. The thorns,
they can be tough to work with.
Yeah, they're thorny. Pruning of barberry is not fun.
Right.
I use my welding gloves.
For that matter.
That's true, and it's a good thing they're pretty because they're yes. I use the leather welding gloves that I've got for pruning barberries, and rosy glow barberry is one. Just well known for its red mix of colors. On winged euonymus burning bush. And of course, the burning bush comes from its fall color, the name. That is beautiful. If you can coax rabbits to leave them alone,
right?
They're rabbit candy. So, but burning bush, the color is so awesome. They'll oftentimes go from from green to kind of a pink tone, then deep, and then deeper red. Just absolutely beautiful. So they're well worth giving some protection. But before the rabbits get to them, it's wise to put some chicken wire around them. And cotoneaster, one of the nicest hedges. I think last podcast, someone asked about
we were talking
pruning
about
on cotoneaster. And a nice hedge type plant and beautiful scarlet color in the fall of the year.
And cotoneaster is not an aster, as I learned last week.
Yes, even though it's kind of spelled like cotton Easter.
Yeah.
And cotoneaster, it's not actually in the aster family. The viburnums. High bush cranberry is in that group. The viburnums turn beautiful scarlet red. And there's different, some are lower, some are taller than others. Dogwoods.
Yep.
Dogwoods are absolutely beautiful in the color. The red twigs. We've got one called Baton Rouge, which is very bright the twigs are bright red, but also develops a nice color as well. And a lot of the 9-barks do very well fall of the year, give nice, good fall color. Amber Jubilee 9-bark, that's one of my favorites. The color during the growing season is kind of a coppery color on the leaves, but then in the fall of the year, then the reds and things really come out on that. And so there's almost something for everyone in these well-adapted, and everything that I mentioned is well-adapted. The maples, you have to kind of watch heavy clay soils and things like that. But there are so many well-adapted things that give color. And in a landscape, it is so fun this time of year to take a look at your landscape and have some things that will give the additional colors.
You had a smoke bush, too. Smoke bush is kind of a fun one.
Oh, that is. And, of course, the name smoke bush comes from the flower clusters because when they are in full bloom, they actually maybe don't look like flowers, but they're big puffs of smoke. I think that's a botanical term, isn't it? Poof.
Yeah, poof, puff.
And it looks like a clouds of smoke on this shrub. And so they are really fun. And in the fall of the year, they develop a nice fall color on the leaves.
They can grow quite tall.
They can.
So they can really fill up an area, and I think that they have kind of a nice texture, especially if it's a little bit blowing or rustling a little bit. It's a really fun thing. Earlier I brought up, around the lakes area, you see a lot of sumac. What do you think about growing sumac in your yard? Because sumac can be really invasive. But
I didn't mention sumac, did I?
But you can really get some great colors, both in golds, really vibrant greens, but then also those reds.
Yes, and one of the favorite that in the nursery trade is one called tiger eye sumac. Tiger eye sumac has, during the growing season, a beautiful kind of a yellowish lime green. It's quite dramatic. Against a house that maybe has dark siding, the bright golden lemon yellow of the foliage is really a wonderful contrast. And in the fall of the year, it develops a golden, kind of a golden scarlety color that is absolutely beautiful. Sometimes you think of sumac that we see kind of along the highways and things as being a beautiful red, but tiger eye sumac develops a beautiful pinkish, golden, reddish, all combined and rolled into one with some copper tones added. And that is a beauty. And now it does send up some suckers. That's what sumacs do. So in a landscape, you do need to dig up some suckers, but some things are worth a little extra work.
Right.
And tiger eye sumac is definitely one of those.
Sometimes sumacs, they also have this kind of plume, right? This kind of this kind of what is it?
The seed head.
The seed head.
The seed cluster on those. Yeah. So they have a kind of a pyramidal, usually darkish, kind of reddish maroon.
Yep.
And so those are quite decorative too.
Right.
They kind of perch on the twigs. And that adds a little color too. And of course, those usually hang on all winter. So you've got some additional color on those even after the leaves have dropped. Well, no discussion of fall color would be complete unless we talked about some perennial flowers.
No.
And fall, one of the reasons fall is one of my favorite times of year is because in addition to the leaves that are so colorful, and you get interesting color tones on other things, plus some blossoms on perennials. And, of course, autumn joy sedum, they're beautiful. The tall asters, there's some beautiful fall blooming asters. Mums, mums can be a little bit tricky to overwinter, but give them a foot or two of leaves. And mums can be a beautiful, one of the nicest fall blooming perennials.
Well, and they have that wonderful natural dome too.
They do.
If you really want to have a very clean, tidy look, mums is a great way to go.
Speaking of domes, one of the most popular fall blooming asters is the one called purple dome.
Right.
Because it creates the purple dome. On ornamental grasses, this is the time of year when they're starting to put out their seed heads. So even though they aren't maybe a colorful flower as such, the interest that they give. And then some of the ornamental grasses start to develop kind of a beautiful orange color themselves. Some of them are even purple. And so it's fun to see. And I'm still enjoying some of the annuals that are still blooming in the fall. So this time of year, you've got some of the perennials that are blooming. yet, and some of the different things taking on their fall leaf colors. And it is just a fascinating time of year, I believe.
Yeah, you can go from these really vibrant, bold colors to the more kind of like earth tones or golds or muted colors, and all of them together just really they're all very thrilling.
You know, that brings to mind one of the world famous landscape designers, Piet Oudolf from Holland. One of his key things is to enjoy. He says, enjoy the browns of autumn. You know, sometimes brown sounds kind of dull, maybe, but no, all the color tones that as things start to become brown, in amongst the browns, you've got the reds and copper colors and oranges and everything else. But as the colors start to change like that, and after he indicated that, then I see our own landscape, flower beds and everything else in a whole new light. I've learned to appreciate the muted colors, the shades as things kind of go from the growing season into winter, that time in between, those long shadows that I talk about in the fall. And yeah, so I've come to appreciate the browns of autumn.
One of the things that we didn't talk about that I don't think a lot of people can really plant, but there's a favorite fall color.
What's that?
And I think we should do it. We've been talking about doing a show on dried flowers and dried floral arrangements. Bittersweet.
Oh, yeah.
Bittersweet and things like they used to call them Chinese lanterns. I don't know what the term is now, but things like that are more in the wild, and they can be very invasive. But those are fun things to see.
Beautiful.
If you're out for these drives.
Berries, the orange-red berries of the bittersweet.
Look in
and
the
even
ditches
grapevine.
Yeah.
You know, the vine themselves. In the fall of the year, beautiful grapevine wreaths and different things, and Chinese lantern. Those are fun.
Very
invasive,
nice, very invasive, but
fun.
really colorful.
The papery little lanterns.
Yeah. A lot of great things that are out there. And Virginia creeper, as far as a vine, is another one that can have really good color in the fall too.
Yes, for a vine, that one becomes just scarlet. And Virginia creeper, the leaf shape is like the palm of your hand.
Yeah,
it's got about 5 leaflets all coming together at one point. And that is beautiful. On chain link fences, that's one of the favorite things I think to grow and promote, because it creates a living fence.
Yeah.
And you need to trim it if it reaches the spot at which you want it to stop. You need to trim it, but that's okay. But beautiful scarlet color in the fall of the year. Virginia creeper. And Engelmann ivy is the close relative of that will cling and climb up bricks. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is absolutely beautiful in the fall of the year, a rich scarlet.
A lot of fun things to go out and look for.
There are. And that's why this time of year, I've really learned to embrace fall. Yeah, we know winter's going to be coming, but we think about next spring already. And what a time right now to enjoy all the colors going on.
Well, if people have suggestions for if we missed your favorite fall color, or if you have questions for Dawn about things to grow in the fall for a fall color, or any time of the year, or even if you just kind of want to show off what your highlights from your year of growing have been, what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, send me a photo of your most colorful tree or shrub this time of year. That'd be awesome. I'd love to see it. Send me an email, donald.kinsler, KINZLER, @ndsu.edu.
And we should note that Don Kinsler has been nominated for the Forum's Best Of category as far as Best Of columnists, and so this is kind of a good honor up against a lot of great writers. But if Don is one of your favorite columnists, then feel free to go on Inform and vote for Don Kinsler.
Well, that's awesome. It's awesome to be nominated Best of the Best.
Yes.
I'm blushing. I'm tickled. So the 5 was it 5 or 6 names of forum people who contribute material to the forum as a columnist, and so I'm tickled to be nominated.
Because we should say that your column runs every Saturday in the forum. 2 columns actually. One is your
general
column
topic, and another is a
questions from readers.
Fielding questions.
All right. Well, Don, thanks again for taking the time to talk. Really looking forward to having a good fall and seeing some great colors.
And thank you, John, and thanks everyone for listening.